I'm Diane Macedo. Today on ABC News Live, a dangerous turn in the war in Ukraine. President Zelensky is warning the world is on the verge of nuclear disaster with shelling at the Russian-held power plant. We're in Ukraine as the fighting intensifies. The clock is ticking for the Justice Department over the search at former President Trump's Florida home. A judge gave 1 week to propose which parts of the related affidavit should be redacted. What we're learning now about what may or may not be made public. Governors in Arizona and Texas are sounding the alarm as some communities see a record number of migrants crossing the border with Mexico. Our Maria Villarreal is on the border with a first-hand view of the growing crisis. But we begin with concerns over a potential nuclear disaster in Ukraine after a new round of shelling near that Russian-held nuclear power plant. There are reports now that Russia told plant workers not to show up to work today. Our Britt Clennett is in Poltava, Ukraine with the latest.
This morning, mounting concerns over a potential nuclear disaster in Ukraine. Several strikes reported overnight near the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, Europe's largest. Fear growing rapidly after recent attacks in the area. This video circulating online showing a projectile landing and exploding nearby. Now both sides warning of an escalation. Sources reporting that Russia told plant workers not to show up today. Russia is accused of using the plant as a military base. This video posted by Ukrainian officials show Russian military vehicles inside the plant. ABC News has not been able to verify the date the video was captured. President Zelensky writing on Twitter, the world is on a verge of nuclear disaster. The president meeting with the UN Secretary General, calling on the UN to help ensure the demilitarization of the nuclear power plant. In Zaporizhzhia, one local volunteer telling us they're providing vital medication, such as anti-radiation medicine, to plant workers after they were secretly requested.
This is iodine. Yeah. And these guys are gathering it, collecting it so that they can send it across to Ananda, where the plant is, in case there is a radioactive leak.
Both Ukraine and Russia blame each other for the ongoing attacks. Earlier this week, Ukrainian officials holding disaster drills in response to those attacks. And this morning, Russia has rejected proposals to set up a demilitarized zone around the plant, saying it would make it more vulnerable to attacks. Diane?
All right, Britt Clennett, thanks for that. And for more, I want to bring in ABC News national security and defense analyst Mick Mulroy. Mick, there were more strikes around the nuclear plant overnight, and Ukrainians even conducted drills in the event of a radiation leak. So how dangerous are these strikes?
So from a military perspective, Diane, I could tell you that the munitions that are being used are substantial and could cause serious structural damage. I can't talk specifically about the containment mechanism around the nuclear reactors. I'm not an expert in that area. But I would think that you wouldn't want any explosions going off near a nuclear site, not only because of the reactor itself, but also the power source. There's multiple layers of power sources to make sure that they don't lose power at this plant, which could cause a meltdown, in my understanding. So the demilitarized zone is an absolute necessity in this. We should not accept no from Russia. They are currently hiding military equipment in the facility for the very reasons that they know that the Ukrainians cannot launch weapons there. It's time for the international community, obviously led by the UN, to ensure that this happens.
Now, Mick, Russia is flying drones to record real-time footage from around the nuclear plant. They've gone back and forth with Ukraine over who's to blame for some of the fighting there, some of the shelling there. What's their ultimate goal here?
Well, I think part of it is that they know that they can hide material that they do not want Ukrainians to be able to strike, because they simply can't do it if it's in the vicinity of this nuclear plant. And I think they also want to own this critical, I mean, it's the largest nuclear power plant in Europe. They also want to own this territory, as they want to own the entirety of Ukraine. So they're basically playing with fire here, and it's time that they get called out on it. The demilitarized zone would leave this to just the scientists and the technicians, not the soldiers.
Now, ammunition depots and other sites in Russian-held territory were hit overnight, including in the Crimean Peninsula. So what's the status of the Russian advance, and how is Ukraine's military doing against it?
Well, it looks like this is the Ukrainians have decided to enter into this irregular warfare campaign in Crimea full-heartedly. And quite frankly, they're going to be really good at it. The United States special operations and intelligence agencies have trained the Ukrainian Special Forces since 2014, and they're likely leading this guerrilla effort in Crimea. The intent, of course, would be to get the Russian soldiers that are there to completely lose faith in their ability to hold the Crimea and never be able to rest, always looking over their shoulder. I think that's what you're seeing with these very carefully planned attacks that are having a significant impact on Russia's military capability.
Now, the Biden administration is readying about $800 million of additional military aid to Ukraine and could announce that as soon as today. So what will this additional aid do?
So what it will do, Diane, is basically the Ukrainian capabilities going up while the Russian capabilities are going down. They have a hard time replacing Russian equipment, but the Ukrainians have the full power, the manufacturing power and logistical power of the U.S. military, and that is substantial. It looks like they're going to mount a counteroffensive to take back Kherson, a key city in the south, and these munitions that the U.S. is providing now will be key to their ability to do that.
All right, Mick Mulroy, we appreciate it. Thank you. The Justice Department has just days now to present suggested redactions after a federal judge indicated he plans to unseal at least parts of the affidavit used to justify the search of President Trump's Florida home. The government has until next Thursday to ask for those redactions. For more, let's bring in senior investigative reporter Aaron Katursky and investigative reporter Catherine Faulders. Thank you both for being here. Catherine, I know you were in the courtroom when the judge made this decision. So what impact could this have on the investigation?
Well, look, it doesn't seem like it's going to have an immediate impact. This is going to be a weeks-long, potentially months-long process. Though lawyers for DOJ, when the judge was talking about potentially them submitting their redactions, they indicated that this could be a lengthy process, could take away from some of the investigative elements that they are pursuing. But look, we're unlikely to see anything soon on this. DOJ will submit the redactions. The judge will review them. Remember, this judge has read this affidavit multiple times. It was described as lengthy and in depth. So they'll have a discussion about what DOJ thinks needs to be redacted, and then they'll go from there. And look, DOJ is likely to appeal any ruling by the judge if the judge rules that the portions of this be unsealed. So again, we're looking at a long, drawn-out process here, potentially, with the unlikelihood of seeing anything substantive on this soon.
Now, Aaron, former President Trump has said he wants the full affidavit released, unredacted. So why aren't his lawyers in court asking for that?
They may not think it's a good idea, Diane. They may think that if the affidavit ultimately is released, it would cast an even greater suspicion on their client because it would give sort of the underlying reasons why the FBI believed it had to go in and search the former president's estate. It would talk about the suspicions of the crime. It would also perhaps talk about their reasons for understanding why there was classified material in the first place when a lawyer for the former president said there wasn't any more at Mar-a-Lago. So they may know that there's damaging information there, or at least suspect there's damaging information there to the former president. There may be one other reason too, Diane, and that is to contain some of the impulses of the former president. What would happen if all the names of cooperating witnesses, say, were suddenly available to the public? We've already seen what's happened with FBI agents involved in the search, their home addresses and family members being exposed publicly. Other witnesses could then be put at risk, and that would then be perhaps on Trump and not the Justice Department.
Now, Catherine, during the hearing yesterday, a DOJ official said one reason to keep the affidavit sealed is the threat of possible obstruction and interference in the investigation, and said that in this case, that's not just theoretical because the court already found probable cause that there was a violation of one of the obstruction statutes. So what do you make of that?
Right. Look, that's significant coming from Jay Bratt, the head of the Counter-Intel Division at DOJ, essentially discussing the severity and the impact of what releasing such a thing would have on their investigation. He mentioned obstruction. He mentioned the threat to potential witnesses. And it was interesting, Diane, because he said that some of these witnesses who they've spoken to, they know very specific things. So even if you redacted their identity, for example, it's possible that you could know who the specific person was just based on the very specific information in that affidavit.
Now, Aaron, midterm elections around the corner are the focus of so many campaigns right now. So what are the political implications of all of this? Does this hurt or help Trump's influence within the Republican Party?
Oh, man, I'll leave it to many others, but we know the investigations have already led some in the Republican Party, think Liz Cheney, to say that there is no way that former President Trump is fit to hold elective office again. And so she, for one, is working to see to it that he is not able to either run or that you know, he's so tainted that voters believe he can't be elected again. So I think from within his own party, he is facing some resistance given the swirl of accusations. But we've also seen in the past that his instincts usually aren't wrong when it comes to public perceptions, and his supporters are loyal to the end. So nothing that is being alleged or even suspected really seems to hurt him politically, at least with his own core of supporters.
All right, Catherine Falders, Aaron Katursky, thank you both. And the governors of Arizona and Texas are warning of a growing crisis as border communities are seeing a record number of migrants this year. U.S. Customs and Border Protection is now reporting nearly 2 million arrests at the southern border in just the last 10 months. ABC's Maria Villarreal got a first-hand look.
Governors in Arizona and Texas sounding the alarm as border communities like Eagle Pass, Texas, are overwhelmed by the record number of migrants. Our cameras capturing several groups crossing the Rio Grande River with young children hoping to request asylum.
Apprehensions are expected to hit over 2 million in just 1 year. So right now, it is an all-out effort by local, state, and federal agencies here on the border.
If the numbers stay at this rate, it will be the highest number of illegal crossings since at least 1960. This family is from Venezuela.
¿Qué van a hacer aquí en Estados Unidos?
A trabajar.
I mean, they're here to work. They don't know anybody here.
Many of the migrants will end up at the only shelter in town, Mission Border Hope. On average, they're seeing more than 500 people come through their doors every day.
If the numbers increase, I don't know any shelter will have availability for them.
In July, nearly 200,000 migrants were processed along the southwest border. Texas and Arizona now busing some of those people to New York and Washington, D.C.
We need our fellow Americans to understand how significant, how prolific the challenges that we're dealing with.
All of these migrants have been processed by Border Patrol, many asking for asylum through an immigration policy known as Title VIII, which allows them to lawfully live in the U.S. while their cases are pending, regularly reporting to immigration officials to avoid deportation.
We've spoken to a lot of people that live along the border. They say this is neither a red or blue issue, Republican or Democrat. This is an American problem that needs to be addressed. But so far, the Biden administration has remained fairly quiet on what's happening along the border. Diane?
All right, Maria Villarreal, thank you. And the National Association of Realtors is reporting home sales are down nearly 6% in July compared to June, the 6th straight month of declines. Higher mortgage rates, surging inflation, and near all-time high prices are all being blamed for making homes less affordable. ABC News Chief Business Correspondent Rebecca Jarvis has more on that. Hi, Rebecca.
Diane, this is the latest sign that the housing market, which was booming at the start of this year, is stalling out. Existing home sales fell in July for the 6th straight month. That is the longest stretch of declines in more than 8 years. So what's driving this? Well, there's a limited supply of homes for sale, and there are soaring mortgage rates. After starting the year around 3%, the 30-year fixed-rate mortgage is now about 5.5%. Prices still remain stubbornly high, though. The median price of a home sold in July was about $404,000. That was up 10.8% from a year ago. And when you factor it all together, home affordability is at its worst level since 1989. People buying today are typically having to shell out about 25% of their income towards their mortgage, and that's up from 15% pre-pandemic. It's led the National Association of Realtors to declare we are in a housing recession. Builders are not building new homes. Buyers can't find them. The good news is if you already own and you bought in the pandemic, the value of that house is still likely way up, and you locked in the lowest rate mortgage we will probably see for a very long time. The bottom line for prospective home buyers and sellers, we're not in the seller's market we were in less than a year ago. For sellers, Fix up that home to make it as low risk for buyers as possible. As for buyers, take your time, negotiate, and stay away from bidding wars. Diane?
All right, Rebecca Jarvis, good advice. Thank you. Coming up, the latest on the monkeypox outbreak and what we're learning about how it's impacting Black and brown communities. Dr. Sutton joins me live when we come back. Welcome back. The CDC is now reporting new monkeypox statistics showing Black and brown communities are being disproportionately affected by the outbreak. The agency shared in a briefing this week that according to the CDC, Hispanic Americans account for about 33% of known monkeypox cases in the U.S., while Black Americans make up 28%. Emergency physician and ABC News medical contributor Dr. Darian Sutton is here with more on this. Dr. Sutton, how did the CDC determine this, and what does this data tell you?
Well, good morning, Diane. So the CDC sampled approximately 3,000 cases, and they found that in these cases, as you just stated, the majority or high percentage of confirmed cases of monkeypox belong to Black patients, approximately 28%. But that was more dramatic in certain states. For example, in Georgia, the sampling found that approximately 82% of confirmed cases of monkeypox belong to Black patients. Now, the proportion of those who are infected is significantly higher than the share of the population, as only approximately 14% of the U.S. population is Black. And of course, this is what creates the concerning disparity.
This is reminiscent of COVID-19, which also disproportionately impacted Black and brown communities. These are very different viruses, though. So why are we seeing this again? And when you look at where the data is, specifically in certain areas versus others, is there something that stands out to you?
I think that there are many things that stand out to me when we're looking at the outcomes of monkeypox and COVID-19. And to be quite honest, many examples within healthcare, we often see these disparities. It's multifactorial and nuanced due to a lack of access to care. But specifically within monkeypox, there was an inability for public healthcare communication to be inclusive. And by that, I mean early on in this pandemic and during the majority of the pandemic, photos of what monkeypox looked like included the majority of those patients who were white or lighter colored skin. The lesions can look like skin-colored lesions surrounded by redness, but for patients who are my complexion of darker skin, the lesions can look different. They can be hyperpigmented or darker in color. And you can imagine, Diane, that if someone has new signs and symptoms and they look at photos and it doesn't look like them, they're less likely to think they're infected, more likely to expose themselves to others, and less likely to get access to treatment and testing.
So how do we get around this now? How do we improve this for this outbreak and going forward and try to ensure that people have access not only to the right education, the right kind of images so they can identify this kind of thing, but also testing, vaccination centers, and anything else that's needed from a public health standpoint?
I think we need to not just sit on this information, but act on it. It's important that we're strategic about the ways that we provide this education, increasing funding to community and sexual health centers, and making sure that we provide this information in places where those who are most vulnerable are more likely to congregate. And right now, that includes young men, making sure that this information about what it looks like, availability of testing and vaccination, placing it in places like sports arenas, gymnasiums, bars, barbershops, and making sure that it's simply making it available. I think it's quite simple, but sometimes we miss the mark on that.
All right, Dr. Darian Sutton, always great to have you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up, it is Black Business Month, and today we're spotlighting a young entrepreneur in his thrifting business that's helping families save money. He joins me live when we come back. Welcome back. August is Black Business Month, and today we're spotlighting a young entrepreneur making a significant impact right here in New York City. Obocho Peters opened children's thrift store Obocho's Closet in 2018 when he was just 9 years old. His mission? To help families save money. Now, since then, the store has gained worldwide attention, and I'm fortunate to have Obocho Peters and his mother, Sasha Peters, right here with me today to tell us all about it. Thank you both for being here so much. I love this story. Obocho, can you start by just telling us what inspired you to want to do this, especially at 9 years old?
What inspired me to start my business is the movie Avengers: Infinity War coming out. As a kid, I'm a huge Marvel fan, and I loved collecting action figures. And at the time, I wanted 9 action figures that was coming out for the movie, but my mom at the time couldn't afford it. So she got me one, And she said when she got the money that she was gonna try to get me to rest. So I wanted to help out, and I went into my room and created an idea to sell all the clothes and shoes that didn't fit me in order to raise the money for the toys that I wanted.
Now, sometimes we would do this sort of lemonade style. You know, you call some of your neighbors or you have a garage sale or whatnot. Sasha, what's your reaction when your 9-year-old comes to you and says, I want to make this a real business?
Well, my reaction was I was actually excited because, one, I'm a thrifter. He's used to see me design stuff, and he used to see me remixing clothes and things like that. So when he came with the idea, I was like, are you sure? And he said, yes. So what I did was I said, I'm going to put you in small business classes. Let me see how serious you are. And if you're serious about it, I'm going to take off the kid gloves and you could become a businessman at that point.
Now, what made you decide, instead of, let me just help you do this on a really, sort of small scale, I'm going to put you in small business classes?
Because he said he wanted to be a CEO.
And so, Obocho, back to you. You are now a CEO. The company's been in existence for 3 years now. How do you balance that with being a student?
Well, I balance that with being an entrepreneur and being a student and being a kid is because my mom sets different schedules and time frames for me. So everything is balanced between school, between the business, helping out with the shop, selling clothes, putting stuff on the website. All of that has a time schedule and a time frame that things are done by. So with the help of my mom, I'm able to put my schedule in the right place. So every time I do something, it's according to my schedule every single day.
You're keeping it all under wraps. Now,
yes.
I know that during the pandemic, you had to shut down the brick and mortar store along with so many, but the business is now fully operational online. So what have you learned running this business over the past 3 years? And how is business right now?
Right now, business is online, but it's going good. What I'm learning is how to pivot between stations, between in-store, having a brick and mortar store, and online, dealing with my customers, knowing how to communicate with people, and all the lessons that I've learned by communicating with people in person and communicating with people to get them what they want online, and the extra lessons that my mom teaches me to be the best business person that I can be.
So, Sasha, how do you feel watching this business and Obocho grow throughout this process? And what's your message to other parents when their kid comes to them with an idea?
Well, I enjoy watching him go through the process because I have, I set up where everything for him is an experience. Everything for him is choices. So whatever your choices are, there's consequences, whether it's good or bad. So I allow him to stumble as much as possible. I try to stay hands off unless I absolutely have to, go in. What I say to parents is, like, if a child comes to you and say they want to do something or they want to start a business, move yourself out the way. Don't think about where you failed in your life. Because what happens is you're going to stunt their growth for them to experience what they want to do. So you have to allow them to just be, and don't be so, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. Just be, calm down.
Just be.
Just relax.
As a mother of 2 little ones, I'm going to remember that. Obocho, Sasha, thank you so much. It's really an honor. And the website's obochoscloset.com.
Yes.
People can check that out online. I'm Diane Macedo. Thank you again for being here. We'll be right back.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.